Okay, why don't we call the meeting to order? We have some speakers for public testimony. I'd like to call up Eugene Marble III, Francine Maxwell, Coral Taylor, and Kathleen Gallagher.
Ooh, sorry. My name is Francine Maxwell, and I am a parent leader on the campuses of Morris and Lincoln. And I'm here to ask the board for their consideration. I'm reading more and more that you want to give the school more power. That includes the leadership of the school and parents. But if the parents aren't participating now, how are the parents going to participate in some of the major issues? So I'd like to know if you have a gauge, an accountability card that you're going to hold the leadership accountable to what their parent involvement is. A real card that is sent home to parents. Parents fill it out. How many times have you been to the school? How many parent-teacher conferences has you had in person, on the phone, or email? I think that you need to really get a hold of this lack of parent involvement on these campuses. We need to improve the conditions of our kids. They're in an educational crisis. Many ILT teams will sit up and tell you that they enjoy parent participation. Yes, when the students are playing in a band or when there's a big football game, there's 200, 300, 400 parents and community members out there, but there's no one taking the extreme measures during halftime to remind them, we need you every other day, not just at football. Come to the SSC, come to the SGT. They need to be more welcoming. I know that there's schools that are working on being labeled a friendly school or whatever you want to call it, but I really like for you to get a hold of these parent liaisons and have them give you a full report on how they've moved the parent involvement on these campuses. If they haven't moved the parent involvement, if they're having events and only 10 parents show up every month, I understand that those are the best 10, but if that's all they can bring, then we need to do away with the parent liaison position, because if you can't move more parent involvement month to month or even a quarterly report, I think that there's a problem. I also like you to really make sure that all stakeholders are involved in the leadership accountability card. If the principals are going to get a grade, you need to make sure that us parents have a day that we can come to school and fill out a card to grade them and then submit them in the mail so that you know that it's directly coming from us, that they're not tampered with, and not the only selected parents that are going to give the ILT teams A's get these cards. So either we need to mail them home, or you can open up a day where we come to school at our convenience and meet with our counselor and we fill out a graded card on the ILT teams or the academic leaderships on our campuses. And then I also would like you to look at some of these leadership teams that are on these campuses. There's no parents on them. So how can you be a true ILT team or a true leadership team that is running the school by not having parents or all stakeholders on there? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maxwell.
Good evening. My name is Coral Taylor, and I attend Lincoln High School of Science Engineering. I am also a 4th District delegate on the Mayor's Youth Commission Board. I recently attended an SSC meeting where I was concerned of the lack of a quorum that the committee talked about a recommendation received by the Title I office to change the bylaws to where people were allowed to send in a proxy vote. I feel that this is wrong. If you're on the SSC, then you should make that day completely about the SSC. It's on the same day every month, and you should make that day free or give up your seat. I am also concerned when 3 parents said that if they would change the meeting to solely being at 3:30, that they would have to resign. I feel that if there's no parents on the SSC, then it's not really an SSC. It's parents, teachers, principals, and community members. We live in a working community, and parents don't get off until 4:30. They have to go home and take care of their kids and come back at 6. You should do that. I also think that if the SSC member is unable to attend the meeting, they should send an alternate, not just be there at all. I also know students from other schools who have 4 AP classes and a job who, if they sit on the SSC, go home, do their homework, and come back at 6 for the SSC meeting. They said these ideas were okayed by the Title I office. I feel that the Title I office should revisit the idea of a proxy and be more careful when recommending these ideas to the schools. Parent involvement is very important to improve the quality of our schools. Thank you.
Eugene Marble III or Kathleen Gallagher? Nope. Okay. We will call the meeting to order then, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have? We don't have a color belt. Okay. Yeah, everybody's on spring break, so ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone present today and those watching the broadcast and call the March 30th, 2010 regular meeting to order with all board members present. If you wish to address the board today and your name is not on the blue sheet located at both entrances to the auditorium and you have not already submitted a request for public testimony form, please complete the form and submit it to Ms. Ward. Speakers on agenda items will be called on to speak during the discussion of the agenda item. Non-agenda item testimony was heard at 5 p.m. and will also be heard at the end of the meeting. And we have no ASB reps today either. Boy, this is a quiet meeting. That's right.
They're surfing.
We've got no student presentation. Oh, man. Okay, so we'll just move on to the report of closed session actions and the superintendent's information report. Superintendent Koba.
Thank you, President Pereira. Administrative assignments, Nellie Meyer from Interim Chief Elementary School Improvement Officer to Interim Deputy Superintendent. Jean Robinson from Assistant Director, Food Services to Assistant Director, Food and Distribution Services, Auxiliary Services Department. And that's it for administrative assignments. I'll proceed with the superintendent's comments. The information report. I have a number of items I want to bring to the attention of the board and the community at large. First and foremost, I think theater is alive and well in the district. I had the wonderful opportunity to go over to Hawthorne Elementary School earlier in the month at the invitation of Principal Kimberly Lopez. I went over to watch something called Honk, the Hans Christian Andersen adaptation in musical form to the fairy tale. And I bring it to the attention for a couple reasons. One was the broad-based engagement of the elementary school. Two casts, 80-some kids brought together, grades 3 through 5, and it was a nice merger of the GATE organization within the school and visual performing arts. And I think a third element of this was the enthusiastic parental packing of the auditorium. So it was a real win-win, I thought, and the kind of thing that you like to see throughout the district. Moving in a different direction, also earlier in the month, I had the privilege of speaking to the Association of African American Educators, the AAAE, at the Jacobs Center. I think a reflection or testimony of their sustainability. This was the 19th annual gathering of the community, and it was a broad-based gathering as well, not only from San Diego Unified, but districts and different institutions across the county and from other areas. Of note, I brought together my own observations in the opening comments on that Saturday of the conference, a kind of good news, bad news story. Looking at our statistics, while our African American students have grown in math and English relative to their own subgroup in the last 3 years, I was going 06 to 09, 31.8 to 43% in math and 33 to 45% in English language arts. Sadly, though, in measurement or comparison to our white subgroup, only closing the achievement gap by 2%. I think that's a rallying cry, a battle cry for us to keep focused in that area. And the AAIE is developing and coming out with something called the Blueprint, which is their plan calling us to action, all of the districts, to support them and get further engaged in any and all efforts to improve achievement. And meetings are being set up, and you'll be seeing more about the strategy from the AAIE. And then moving on, and I understand Vice President John Evans is going to talk in great depth, but the week before last, John and I, Bernie Reinderson, our District Relations Officer, and Monica Hanestrosa, our Legislative Affairs person, were in Washington for the annual Council of Great City Schools Legislative Affairs Gathering. And I thought it was a very insightful and very informative event. Most of the 60-some-odd large urban schools that are part of the Council were there. We had the benefit of hearing Secretary of Education Arne Duncan speak the day after a presentation or briefing from Chairman of the House Education Committee, Congressman Miller from our own Martinez, California. And it's clear that President Obama and the administration have plans clearly in place and are moving out on the reauthorization of the Elementary Secondary Education Act, a follow-up successor to No Child Left Behind. Had the opportunity to go around and meet with congressional representatives, and I'm not going to steal any more thunder from John and the good presentation he has. And I think the last thing I want to bring up for all is that my ongoing tour of the district and of schools, I think I had a real nice success story, and that's Bell Middle School. I walked the campus, went into the classroom, and had a very good conversation with Michael Dotson, our current principal there. It wasn't that long ago, 3 years as a matter of fact, where we were in such difficult times. We had 2 co-principals, upwards of 4 vice principals, and we were basically throwing adults at a situation where we just simply should have come together to partner with the kids, the parents, and do something better. And it's just remarkable to see what our Principal Dotson has done. And we had a very good conversation and saw the Promethean Board in action, in a 6th grade science classroom, and some things that the kids and the teachers had done. And final note there is Michael is a great success of troops to teachers. Retired Navy dental tech, got a credential, went into teaching, and then quickly made the ranks up to administrator and doing very well at Bell. And that was how March went. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Kova. Okay, can we get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's the green one.
And can we get a motion to approve the minutes for the meetings of January 26th and February 9th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and on to information reports from the board. Ms. Nakamura, if you want to begin.
Yeah, we had also the middle school honor concert in addition to your theater. I can say that music is also alive and well within the district. Mr. DeBeck attended with me at the Point Loma Nazarene, which is nice of them to host. But it was there's room for growth, I think, with our middle school students in music. But it was a really great presentation. Wonderful effort, and these were our very best middle school students. But I also attended an event. Judge Link, one of our justices here in San Diego, made a presentation called Justice 101, in which it was only for parents. Students were not allowed to attend, and the doors were closed. And he had a very clear presentation to parents at one of our high schools regarding what comes into his courtroom with regard to kids and what they should be looking out for with regard to Facebook and alcohol at parties and what their legal liabilities were. I don't think there was a parent in the room that walked out of there without a different idea. He did encourage us not to go in and land on our kids, but that these are very real issues and very real concerns. It was very sobering to pun intended, I suppose. But it was it was, he paired with another justice. They did a really wonderful job of explaining to parents what their obligations are, and I understand that he's doing it he's done it at La Jolla High and at University City High, and I think that it's a great program for other high schools in the district as well, to have parents come in and sit down and really talk about that these are not just casual problems, particularly if you provide alcohol at a party, what your liability is and what can happen. But also, again, with Facebook and activities outside the house, driving. It was a good program. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, next week or very soon, I and the other board members will start a 6-week period of volunteering in third grade classrooms. Don't forget.
I forgot.
And I'm hoping that a lot of people here and other people watching throughout the community, we've decided to have a very targeted 6-week program, working once or twice a week with a third grader in terms of helping them with their reading skills and making a real boost. So there's a real opportunity for everybody to get involved in a very real way on a very short-term basis. And in terms of speaking of involvement, I just went to one of the Cesar Chavez commemoration breakfasts last Friday, and just wanted to commend the Cesar Chavez service clubs here in San Diego. Carlos and Linda Legretti have done a great job in terms of all the time and hours they volunteered in terms of working with these groups of kids who are dedicated to serving their communities. It's very inspiring to see all these kids working together. And finally, as we begin the superintendent search in my area of the city and University City on April 14th, will be our town hall meeting where people will come together to discuss what the plans are for the district and what we want in terms of a superintendent. So there's a real opportunity for people in the community to get involved. Thanks.
Mr. DeBeck.
Well, it's been a busy week, but it's all political, so I'll just pass.
Okay. Ms. Jackson.
Okay. Just a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to congratulate Lincoln again for winning the state division championship, and we'll see them, I guess, at our next board meeting to present to them. The other Chavez breakfast, I attended, both of them, one on Friday and the one on Monday, and our students are doing very well in some of the competitions that they're having. The curfew sweeps are back in force, parents, if you're listening. And so if your children are out after 10 o'clock at night, they will be picked up. They did one in the Lincoln Heights area. They did one in the City Heights area. So they are now back in force. April the 8th, in our community at Porter North, we're having our superintendent town hall meeting for those that are interested in coming and providing information as to what we want in our next superintendent. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Yeah, and I'd like to just build off what Dr. Evans and Ms. Jackson said about the Cesar Chavez Club event on Friday. It was fantastic. We had representatives from the Chavez clubs at, I think, 14 different schools in our district. And a couple of days prior to that, on Wednesday, we had the annual march at Cesar Chavez Elementary School, where students, went and marched around the perimeter of the school, the blocks around the perimeter. But this year, they were joined as they marched by students who marched up the street from Balboa, students who marched over from Baker, students who came over from Emerson Bandini Memorial. It was really inspiring to see, hundreds of students, marching through the streets together to honor the memory of Cesar Chavez and to commit themselves, to a future of making the world a better place. So that was exciting. I also want to thank everybody who came out to the State of the District address last Wednesday at Cherokee Point. And maybe, I think, more exciting than that was the next morning at Cherokee Point, a group of parents from both Cherokee Point and Central Elementary came together and met to talk about ways to get their school communities active to stand up and fight for public education. So I'm really excited to see the efforts taking hold. So we will now move on to item FO2. Oh, I'm sorry. We've got if we could have a motion to excuse the absence of Board Member John DeBeck from the March 24th special meeting. All in favor?
This time I'll vote.
Okay, you'll vote on this one.
I won't abstain.
Okay, item FO2, Mr. DeBeck.
Okay, first of all, this agenda item has created a lot of furor, and people who know the process know you have to put something in the agenda early to get a place, and so I put down eliminating non-teaching half-days, which I would certainly support. I think that a lot of people have discussed it. If there are people here to speak, that's fine. As far as I'm concerned, I would like to make a motion if it's seconded, and then we can discuss it. I move the board direct the superintendent to enter into negotiations to restore up to 5 lost instructional days during the term of the current collective bargaining agreement. The reason I'm making that motion is because I think that we have some ways in which we could reopen negotiations that center around these days, for example, and I believe that it's the right thing to do for kids to increase instruction. There is no evidence to support that staff development days immediately improve student achievement, and I think that's what we're about. So adding a day or more certainly is something that I believe the superintendent should pursue.
Okay,
is there a second?
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, no second. So we will move on then to item FO3. This is a resolution to support the May 8th rally at Balboa Park to fight for full funding of public education. Could I have a motion?
Second.
In a second. Okay. Any discussion?
Could you just point out to the public what this involves?
Yes, absolutely. So Saturday, May 8th at 10 a.m. at Balboa Park, we're expecting actually thousands of parents, teachers, students, principals, community leaders, people who care deeply about public education to gather together at Balboa Park and then march downtown with a very simple message of no more cuts to public education. I think the folks in Sacramento are starting to hear, probably in a way that they haven't heard in a long time, that Californians and people in San Diego in particular believe in public education, and we don't believe that the way to balance the budget is to further disinvest from our kids. So this rally is about sending that message loud and clear.
I wanted to speak.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes, and certainly we want to applaud all the parents around the district, and we're looking to find parents at all of the schools. So if you're out there and you're a parent and you want to participate, organize your school to be there on this particular date, we'd appreciate that. I think that President Barrera is doing an excellent job in coordinating these people to educate for our future, and I think that the stronger our voices here, the louder that we scream and come together, that the people at the state will in fact respond. So certainly we're looking forward to I think we'll get 10,000 people. Okay, not just a few thousand. I think we get 10,000. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Dr. Evans.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo my support for this and really encourage everybody to get involved so that the different cluster committees that have formed in La Jolla, Mira Mesa, University City, Madison High School, other areas, all of these groups really forming together, and this is something not to send a representative to, but to come, to bring your family, to bring everybody there to show that the entire community is behind this. I think one thing that is really special this year is that we can really confront this crisis as a San Diego unified district. We have parents, teachers, community members, students, all on board, really speaking up for public education. A lot of times we point the finger at Sacramento and what's going on, but we are collectively responsible for what happens in Sacramento, and so we really need to have our voices heard on this day. So I would encourage people to form carpools, every possible way to get to Balboa Park on May 8th.
Let's talk more.
We had, at the Sacramento Safari, where last year we only had one person go to Sacramento to represent the PTA. This year we increased that to 10 on very short notice, and I have to say that it had a very profound effect. It matters, and I think it's impressive when parents in particular stand up. We have a tradition in San Diego where parents support their teachers, and sometimes they think that's, they support by not speaking up. In this instance, we really need to stand up and say that enough is enough. It's not just about this year. It's not just about last year or even next year. We are in the third year of what is potentially a 5-year budget crisis. And if we don't speak up now, well, then you can forever hold your peace, because the money is not going to be there. We need to, as a district, stand up. We're the second largest district in the state of California, and yet we do not speak up as loudly as we potentially could. So if you're interested in participating, this is one way. You can come down, you can rally, and having us all together on May 8th would be very important. But also sending emails to your legislators and find out these are your state legislators. This is not your congressional federal legislators. These are your state legislators in the state assembly and in the state senate, and of course the governor that we're hoping that you will contact. But send emails to them, but also encourage, if you've got aunts and uncles and grandparents of children in our district, ask them to send it too. It's important that people know that this matters, that we're not willing to go quietly into that good night. So March 8th is a good building block, and it's important. And I've been saying as well, I'd encourage people, they need to pass the budget on time. We spend millions of dollars when the Assembly and the Senate does not pass their budget on time on July 1st. We have to pass our budget here, or they come in and they shut us down. But when the Assembly or the Senate doesn't, this district alone spends upwards of $1.8 million. Huge losses over time, and if you multiply that throughout the state of California, we could save a whole lot of money if they would simply come to a decision point and make a decision on time. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nakamura. Please vote, board members. Okay, great. Okay, item F04, the report on the evaluation of the interim superintendent. I'm going to ask Dr. Evans to lead us through this.
Okay, we recently completed an evaluation of our interim superintendent. We believe very much in evaluation and accountability. All of the members of the board here, for example, are evaluated for every 4 years in determining whether or not they will stay on the board, and this needs to be true of everybody in the district, to being held accountable for what their jobs are. To do this, we have a process set up through coherent governance where we have about 12 different areas of operational expectations, ranging from instruction to the physical plant to budgeting, all the areas that the superintendent oversees. And our basic philosophy is that the superintendent is responsible for the functioning of the district. So therefore, how the district is functioning is basically our evaluation of the superintendent. In this particular case, it was a little bit more difficult because we have an interim superintendent who has come in at a time of transition as we're developing our governance policies and as we're going through a budget crisis and a change in leadership. And so one of the things we did was we kind of separated between his personal performance and the organizational performance, realizing some of the limitations in terms of being an interim superintendent. So we had the board together went over the different expectations, and we had the superintendent rate himself, and we compared that to our evaluation of him. And so to do this, we had 4 particular areas that we had set as priorities last summer, even before he was selected. We had set 4 priorities for the superintendent this year in terms of 4 different areas. The first area is within the area of instruction. Next, the democratic engagement of all stakeholders, personnel administration, and financial administration. So I'll just read a brief statement that we came up with through together collectively for our evaluation on March 16th. We appreciate your willingness to take on the very difficult position of interim superintendent for the San Diego Unified School District in a time of transition. You also did this in the midst of a severe budget crisis. As part of coherent governance, we are to evaluate the superintendent on an annual basis. The evaluation of the superintendent is synonymous with the performance of the district. We chose 4 operational expectations as priorities for this year. The first one is instruction. Instruction, or student achievement, is our primary mission. It has not been given adequate attention this year. It is understandable that it has been difficult to focus on instruction during this budget crisis. However, we need to refocus our attention on excellent educational outcomes in our district, including clear plans for student achievement. The next area is democratic engagement of stakeholders. We want to commend you for your exceptional performance in engaging all stakeholders of the district. You have valued differences of opinion, have reasonably included people in decisions that affect them, and have provided open and honest communication. You have maintained an open, responsive, and welcoming environment. Next is personnel administration. Personnel administration is adequate at this point. There have been some good appointments and other positive changes. Position control within the district is still a big concern. There will be many new challenges as we continue to reorganize our district. And finally was financial administration. Your performance has been exceptional in your ability to lead the staff to a balanced budget under very difficult and constantly changing circumstances. The Board believes there is still a strong need to improve our financial administration and planning. We need to see reports that have accurate, up-to-date figures in a meaningful format that is user-friendly for both the Board and the public. This is crucial for our decision-making ability as a Board. Finally, we appreciate your strong commitment to the district and your willingness and ability to serve in whatever capacity is needed. As the interim superintendent, you have contributed substantially to the long-term stability and progress of our district and should take pride in what you have accomplished. We look forward to working with you in the next few months as our district continues to move forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Evans, and thank you, Superintendent Koba. Okay, on to item F05, a resolution in support of the California Single-Payer Universal Health Care Act. Mr. DeBeck.
Yes, there's a Senate Bill 810, which is before the Senate of the state, which supports the concept of single-payer. And there's a whole series of comments in our resolution, which I won't read. But basically, San Diego Unified would not only achieve significant cost savings in health care for all its employees if a well-designed health care reform were implemented, but it would just mean a lot to, I think, the California community as a whole. So I move that we approve the resolution.
Second. Great. Okay. We've got some public speakers for this item. We've got Joni Collins, Leticia Munguia, and John Stead Mendez.
Good evening, School Board.
She just disappeared.
You broke it.
You broke it.
You broke it.
Maintenance workers.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to have an opportunity to thank Mr. DeBeck and the school board for having
as well as, thank you, CSEA as well as the San Diego Education Association through our Health and Welfare Committee has been steadfast trying to bring this issue before you in years past, but we're happy that it's here. And I want to ask anybody that supports single-payer health care to please stand so you know that this is something that we value for our workers. This is a huge win. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I do want to let you know that this is a big, as Mr. DeBeck has said, half of our workforce is unbenefited and underinsured. So I ask for your strong support. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Leticia. John.
Members of the board, my name is John Stead Mendez, and I'm from the California Nurses Association. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to rise in support of Mr. DeBeck's motion. Single-payer health care really is the most sensible health care reform we could ask for. It is truly bipartisan. It takes a great idea from the right, which is private delivery of health care, and a great one from the left, which is public financing of health care, and replaces the really silly idea that insurance should finance something that all of us need. So we thank you today. We hope you'll vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Okay, please vote, board members. Yeah.
Waiting on you.
Waiting on me. Okay, excellent. Passes 5-0. Thank you, folks, for coming up. And thank you again, Mr. DeBack, for putting this on our agenda.
The problem is we're not the legislature.
Well, Okay, speaking of which, item F06, report on congressional advocacy with the Council of Great City Schools. Dr. Evans. Go down to the podium.
Remember, concise.
Thank you. As Mr. Koba mentioned, we had a trip to Washington for the Council of Great City Schools, and I wanted to reduce basically 100 hours into 10 minutes to provide some useful information to the board and also to the public. And I'm also going to follow this on the PowerPoint right here. So first of all, one of the things I was very excited about in terms of being in Washington was that the national government is really looking at copying us in terms of developing a 2020 plan. In terms of the whole point they're making is making the United States competitive at the college level by the year 2020. Our 2020 graduates are now in the second grade, so we have a lot of work to do between now and the year 2020. And what I did on this form that you see here up above and on the following slide also is kind of compared what we have done in our own 2020 plan and also what we're working on in the next 4 years towards getting there. So you can see, for example, College and Career Ready was the focus of the national plan as well as our local plan, and we're looking at an increased graduation rate, a decreased dropout rate, and measuring success as we're going along, as well as post-measures of success in terms of actually finding out what happens to our students after they graduate from our district. And you can see in all the other areas, diverse learners, our individual focus on students means that all students are going to excel. The focus on great teachers and leaders in terms of improved recruitment and development of our staff. And just going on down, you can see the consistency here. On the national plan, a complete education. In our plan, we have full curriculum with broad measures of success, raising the bar, rewarding excellence, and promoting innovation and continuous improvement. A couple of areas here are one through our technology program and also through our emphasis on more action at the local level in the schools and the clusters for innovation and continuous improvement. So you can see a lot of overlap between what the national government is saying and what we're trying to accomplish. And as Mr. Koba mentioned, ESEA is coming up for reauthorization, and it's a question of exactly when it's going to happen, but it definitely will happen. I think one of the key points is that it's a little bit more of a positive rather than a punitive approach, setting high standards. One change is a growth model, so that's been one of the complaints on No Child Left Behind, that we haven't really adequately measured growth, just said proficient or not proficient. And one thing that was talked about a lot that will have to remain to be seen whether it's going to happen is flexibility at the local level. The phrase that was used was tight on the goals, loose on the means. Really having very specific goals but allowing localities to accomplish that in the way that they best can. It mentions below the development of the national core standards, setting national standards. 48 out of 50 states are participating in this along with the Council of Great City Schools. And again, the idea is to set some standards but to leave some flexibility in terms of how that is accomplished. And finally, I wanted to mention, we've talked before about the supplemental educational services and the fact that we're required to pay for this to outside vendors, and yet we cannot comment on what they're accomplishing or not accomplishing. And the idea is to have more flexibility on this, that districts would be able to opt to have the outside services or actually to be able to do it in-house. Some concerns were brought up by a lot of the people, and again, this is, as Mr. Koba mentioned, was a group of over 60 urban school districts, and some concerns about the way that the Race to the Top program is being set up. First of all, the idea is that the extra discretionary funds would be used for the competitive funds, but there was the possibility of freezing the Title I funds at current levels, which would effectively freeze the amount of money that our poor students are getting throughout the country while just targeting it to a few specific areas. A feeling was that the Race to the Top programs are really best for demonstration projects, to compete, come up with innovative programs, and to then go out and do them and serve as an example for others, because it's only reach a limited number of people. We can see that only 16 of the 50 states were included, and within that only certain districts. Another concern was the 4 turnaround models being proposed by the administration are not well researched, and there was a strong desire to have a 5th option. I put here some examples in terms of what we did last year in terms of, in some schools, reducing class size, stabilizing the staff, different ways to be innovative and to turn a school around that do not necessarily mean firing the principal and teachers or opening a charter school in that particular place. Another point that was made was there are a lot of problems when this money goes through the state, and even when the rules go through the state. The whole way that the bottom 5% was identified was done very differently in the different states. It became clear that a lot of the things that the people in the national office intended were not necessarily carried out by the states, and so there was a desire to have more of the connection between districts and the federal government rather than just going through the state. Now, this was a trip for advocacy, excuse me. And so what was really great was with Monica Enestrosa there as our legislative advocate from Sacramento, it was her first trip to Washington, was we were able to take information that we gained at the conference, put it very directly into very well-documented letters and reports to the congressional staff so that we could go there not just saying, please help out education, but we could say these are the specific areas that are going to help your San Diego constituents. The first area was a jobs bill. The jobs bills have come and gone, and sometimes they've included education and sometimes not. So there was a strong feeling that there was a good possibility of including saving teachers' jobs in a jobs bill. We presented the fact that in March 15th, about 22,000 layoff notices were given just in the state of California. Another issue had to do with a request by the governor for a waiver on the maintenance of effort. And again, this is due to Ms. Enestrosa's hard work in terms of really calculating what was going on. Basically what this says is that when the federal government gave us stimulus money, they said, we will give you this money as long as you maintain your state funding at the level that it was at least in 2005 and 6. Basically, you'll have to take cuts, but that it will be proportional. And we were able to document that the cuts to K-12 have not been proportional. And what was interesting was that a lot of people on Capitol Hill had the impression that the districts supported the governor's request of a waiver, which we very clearly do not. We presented a letter from over 80 districts signing on to that, and various organizations, including California School Board Association and others, to very clearly rebut that argument. And this could make a difference. At one point it was mentioned of up to $600 million on the state level just by maintaining that effort and following the rules. The third point had to do with, as I mentioned before, maintaining Title I formula funding. That we cannot, if we're going to be moving forward in helping our lowest performing schools, we cannot freeze or cut back on our Title I funding, and this needs to be kept separate from the funding that we're using for the competitive grants. And finally, on the funding for E-rate discounts. And what this is, it basically, for our technology programs that we're rolling out, we get tremendous discounts through this program. What had been proposed was to expand this to other areas beyond K-12, community college and other areas, which would be fine, except they were not going to increase the funding. So we don't want them to expand the program unless they're going to expand the funding. And you'll be able to see it says March 23rd, it's actually a March 22nd letter to the House and Senate, and that's also in the public documents that the public can view online, showing what we specifically said to the Congress people that we visited with. And this just gives you an idea of some of the people we were able to talk to. Just to point out, for example, we're pretty fortunate in our local delegation with Congressman Filner and Congresswoman Davis, both former members of the San Diego Board of Education. Congresswoman Davis is on the Education and Labor Committee, along with Duncan D. Hunter. And we were also able to meet with Representative George Miller, who's the chair of the Education Committee. So one of the things that we came up with, and Mr. Reinerson is continuing to work on this, is drafting a letter from our local delegation to the committees and also to the Department of Education on the issue about the waiver, so that the Congress people really were interested in a united front in terms of the San Diego delegation in a bipartisan way, speaking in favor of our children in our district. In terms of, it's always important to look at what's happening with student achievement, and there was a lot presented in terms of what's happened in certain districts, particularly Atlanta and Boston. And San Diego was also one of the ones that scored higher on the math tests, as we saw last summer. But we were kind of looking at what were some of the key elements, and one of them was the benefit of a long-term superintendent for stability. Atlanta, Dr. Hall has been there for 10 or 11 years. In Boston, Tom Pezant was there for about 10 years, and there's a new superintendent there now in the last couple of years. The point was made that it wasn't so much the structure. In some places they were appointed by the mayor, in some places they were appointed by an elected board. But the point was the key focus needs to be on instruction. And I spoke some with the superintendent from Atlanta, and it was very similar to what we're doing in terms of our area plan with the clusters, their community of success, really charging them with going out and improving their K-12 programs as a community. Another topic that came up was the issue of teacher quality. We talked about a lot of different programs and funding, and one of the things I mentioned was, certainly one of the most important factors in student achievement is the quality of the teacher, and what can we do to enhance that. And it was interesting because we heard both in a union and a non-union state. First of all, in Tampa, Florida, where they have a program where each new teacher is clearly designated mentor for 3 years, and a lot of extra support and evaluation. Philadelphia was interesting because it was with a contract that was negotiated with the teachers union that included, one of the provisions was about 90% of their teachers are site-based, so we don't have the jumping all around the district. They're actually selected for the sites, and the teams are put together. And finally, Los Angeles is working on a teacher effectiveness task force, and they're going to have a report on April 13th. So we should be able to look at what they're doing in Tampa and Philadelphia and Los Angeles and get some great ideas. And the Council of Great City Schools Conference in the fall is actually going to focus on this issue of high-quality teachers, and the whole idea of bringing together union people, administrators, boards, and so forth to accomplish this. On a side note, since we're involved in a superintendent search, I just kind of wanted to point out what's going on in a couple of other districts who have some similarities to what we're doing. First of all, Oakland hired a consultant, and then the board narrowed the list down to 3 finalists, and then those 3 finalists went out for multiple engagements in the community and met with them, and then the board finally selected the superintendent. They did have a hired consultant. Portland hired what they call an expensive professional facilitator. They had 53 community engagement meetings. They're very into process, and so they got a lot of feedback from the community in terms of what they wanted in a superintendent. And out of all those meetings, one of the key findings was they wanted a loyal local person for the job. Meaning basically either an internal candidate or someone from the immediately surrounding area who they felt knew the area and was really committed to working with their community. One thing a little different on their process was they said, okay, we've listened to you, now trust us, we're going to go through all of the applications and interviews, and we're going to announce, there wasn't a finalist process, but we're just going to announce who we've chosen for superintendent. couple other just little points I wanted to make. One was a question which I was going to bring up to the staff. On the Title I stimulus dollars, there is the possibility of a waiver of how much needs to be committed to professional development. Now, professional development can be a very good use of the money, but it's always good to have flexibility, and it was stated that the waiver needed to be requested by April 15th. So I just wanted us to pay attention to that for maximum flexibility. Another point brought out was that in some of the successful districts that there was about 60% was a good teacher-to-employee ratio, 60% of the total employees being teachers. Right now, I think we could say we're short on everything. Obviously, we're short on custodians, we're short on landscapers, and also on teachers. But that, in the long run, is something to look at. And there are some comments about charter schools, too. And one was interesting was Secretary Arne Duncan said, we don't expect, there's been a lot of talk about closing schools, opening charters, and so forth. He said, we don't expect more than about 2 to 5% of a district's portfolio to be charter schools. So, we can see what we already have here. That's not the expectation that there would be a huge amount of charter schools. Charter schools need to cover the indirect costs of the district. A lot of districts were pointing out that there were costs that were kind of hidden in their oversight of charters, and that those needed to be covered, as well as more data and accountability from the charters for the renewals. I just wanted to speak for a minute on the value of the Council of Great City Schools. I know I'm speaking to senior board members who are already on board with this, but I just want to concur that the fact that this is a group that focuses on urban districts, focuses on the neediest students, and it's a great opportunity for coalition building, and also for the consultation services. We can't afford to hire high-priced consultants at this point, and there's a good wealth of information that we can get from the Council. They're working on these key performance indicators which allow, for example, transportation, food services, every area. You can see what all the districts in the country are doing and really see whether you're being efficient or not in comparison to everybody else. This particular meeting happened to be very timely because politically, over the weekend was the vote on the health care reform, which was sucking up all of the attention of Washington. So by Monday morning, people were actually willing to, when we started going to offices, talk about other topics. And I think if there's any area where there can be bipartisan support, it is in education. That's a big if there can be bipartisan support. I wanted to mention that we have a really great advocacy team. First of all, with Bill Koba as the interim superintendent, he was very well received at the conference, and also word gets around, he had developed a good reputation from people across the country in terms of what he has been able to do in terms of stabilizing San Diego Unified during this year. Monica Enestrosa, our government relations person in Sacramento, has done a stellar job, as I said, being able to take the information, stay up late at night, compose the letters, the documents, and speak in a very knowledgeable way to these congressional staffs, because we're obviously talking about the people on the staff who are more expert in education. And also Bernie Reinerson, who really did a very great job of coordinating and getting all of the meetings set up. And not a beat was missed. For example, even one morning before we went to the other meetings, we stopped with a group that advocates for military impact aid, which is a very complicated legislative subject, and we also got in some points there. So I think we just really need to acknowledge that. So the final part of a report is, so what? The board, we sit there and say, well, okay, you've given us a bunch of information, what's the point? My point here is that we should recognize this great advocacy team we have and to continue to give them our support. This can make a difference of millions of dollars. It can make a huge difference in what's going on in our classrooms. The second point is I think we need to be really proactive in setting the agenda with the state and the federal government. San Diego Unified has taken the lead in contesting this issue with the governor's maintenance of effort waiver request. I think the Secretary Duncan and others said too, they're very open to listening to different ideas. I think rather than just saying, what are the federal guidelines for these programs, we should say, we're one of the largest districts, these are ideas, this is what we propose as a way to turn around some schools. I think we need to pay attention to the initiatives on teacher quality and other initiatives as they come up through the Council of Great City Schools. As I said before, I think we need to use the consultation services. We get a lot of bang for the buck by doing it through the Council of Great City Schools. I think we need to develop even stronger coalitions with other urban California districts through our discussions with San Francisco, Oakland, Los Angeles. And again, I think Ms. Nostrosa is a good liaison to make all of that happen. And I would just say in closing, I think our continued support for the Council of Great City Schools is merited. The chair this year was the superintendent of the Boston district, and the chair next year is a school board member from Portland. So that concludes my report. If you have any questions or comments, if not.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Evans. Board members, any questions? Good job. Thank you, Dr. Evans. Excellent job. Okay, let's move on to item G01, changes to our board policies F2600 and H3500 and administrative procedures 4255 and 6156 regarding parental notification and early release of students. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is there public comment?
Yeah, I think we've got some public comment.
We can talk about it, but it just brings us in line with...
Okay, Vince Hall and Marge Kleinsmith.
Thank you, Mr. President, trustees, superintendent, and general counsel. This is a hearing that brings to conclusion to a matter that's been open for 3 years. It was actually May 7th of 2007 that we initially brought to the district's attention the fact that policies governing the status of pregnancy and the release of students for confidential medical services dated back to the 1960s and were in fact non-compliant with established state law. The policies that have been brought forward today rectify those errors in a way that doesn't forge any new legal ground. It keeps the district squarely within the four corners of established state law, but it does rectify some serious deficiencies that have the unfortunate effect of putting student health and safety at risk. It wasn't that the policies were necessarily being implemented because staff on the ground were very cognizant of what state law was, but the fact of having a hearing in 2007 that then left the issue open caused doubt in staff's mind about what the right course of action was. And so the immediacy of this action is really critical. Not just because it's required by state law, however, but because also it is very important for the health and safety of students. It is the right thing to do from a public policy perspective. And I speak not just as a proud spokesperson for Planned Parenthood of San Diego and Riverside counties and the ACLU of San Diego and Imperial counties, but also as the father of a 14-year-old daughter who is a student in this district. And the students that I hear from my daughter, the stories that I hear from teenagers who face complicated medical decisions, and it's not just about abortion, though some would have you believe that. It has to do with drug and alcohol treatment for kids who are too afraid to talk to their parents. It has to do with kids who are needing drug and alcohol treatment because the parent is complicit in their abuse. It has to do with people who are contemplating suicide and the parental factors that often are involved in that decision. It has to do with other forms of mental health. And the state legislature, in its wisdom, created confidential medical services so that students would have the ability to access the care that they need while they wrestled with the difficult questions of how to get appropriate parent involvement at the right time in the process. So these are really important statutes. They serve us well. They are based on 2 Attorney General opinions, 3 statewide initiative fights in the last 5 years, 6 statutes, 2 appellate court decisions, and even a Supreme Court decision. There have been small, rural, and suburban school districts around the state of California that have in the last 2 years openly defied state law, and they have decided that they would rather face the potential legal consequences than take action to make sure their policies conform. We believe this is the day and this is the time for the largest school district to take action on this, and you would be joining the other major districts in California in doing this to send a very clear signal that state law is not just a legal necessity, but it's sound public policy. We thank the board for your consideration.
Good afternoon, board members. Excuse me. My name is Marge Kleinsmith, and I'm the sex education resource teacher in the HIV prevention program. And I'm trying not to get too excited here, but I want to thank you all in advance for your support of the changes in these policies and procedures. It's been a long 3 years, even longer than it came to our radar. And we've worked collaboratively with counseling, nursing, legal, and a lot of our community agencies, in addition to Planned Parenthood, to really work with the district to make sure that we were we're following the law in terms of student confidentiality. By changing these policies and procedures, you will allow all staff to not only be in line with district procedures, but also in line with what the Ed Code states. And it'll also allow us to provide much-needed support for students when they seek confidential medical treatment. So thank you for the support.
Okay, any comments from board members? If not, please vote. Great, passes 5-0. Thanks, folks. Okay, on to item GO2, our public hearing and approval of the 2009-10 annual service and budget plans for the local plan for special education. Mr. Koba?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. If no further comment, please vote. Passes 5-0. Okay, item GO3, course of study for the 2009-10 year. We've got one speaker. First, can we get a motion? Yeah, get a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, Sally Smith.
I'm Sally Smith, 3551 Lord Street, San Diego. Regarding the course of study, I ask that you not approve the course of study as it is presented to the board. Course descriptions need to be corrected. Due to changes in staff, there are improper course descriptions that have not been updated. The improper course descriptions lead to tracking of students in courses. It should be distributed to all principals once it is approved to ensure that the courses offered at the school sites are also in the official course of study. There's a practice of courses being offered at school sites that are not on the course of study, and then at the end of the year, principals come to the district office looking for course numbers for unapproved courses, and that's not the way it should be done in this district. It's approved first, and then they can offer it off the official course of study. Regarding the numerous pilots, those pilots have not been scrutinized appropriately. They were approved and reapproved based on anecdotal information, not on data. Many boutique courses benefit few students, and our financial resources are far too stretched to have so many courses that benefit few students. Approving this course of study is not positioning the district for the A through G policy. Examples of courses that I was reviewing included the dynamics of peer counseling, which this year schools were found not to be implementing properly, and it should be deleted. That should be the accountability. If they're not offered properly, then we've proven that it's not going to be implemented properly, and it should be removed. Naviance needs to be implemented so that the district can track better that the course of study is being followed through at the school sites, and that's being resisted by school sites, Naviance, not all of them, but some of them, and that is a great tool that we need to get in place for the incoming school year. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, on to item HO1, the final offers of the allocation of facilities for charter schools under Prop 39.
Move approval.
Got a motion and a second. We've got one speaker on this, Paul Escala.
Good afternoon. My name is California Charter Schools Association, and I wanted to come to you and Tony Burks for their work with the Charter School Association. Thank you. Appreciate the work your staff has done, and look forward to an incredible partnership moving forward. And I know that there are some opportunities down the way in the district's study on administrative spaces for long-term solutions for charter schools. So again, thank you very much, and appreciate all of your help and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Please vote. Okay, the next two items come out of our workshop a couple of weeks ago. Item HO2 concerns Prop S projects and the use of CCDC, Center City Development Corporation funds for a portion of a proposed downtown library.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. With no further comment, please vote. Okay. And item HO3, the use of potential construction savings in Prop S. Do we need? Can we get a motion?
Move approval for discussion.
Move approval for discussion. Do we have a second? Okay, great. Ms. Nakamura, do you want staff to comment on this?
Yeah, I will. I suppose so, but I want to make it clear, as all of you know, that I've really firmly believe that when a school is, made an effort to try and use their Prop S dollars to the best benefit of that school, that they shouldn't be penalized for it later. And this is my understanding of this is that it's restricted to construction costs and savings in that area. Where we've, and I dislike the term value engineering because most of the time I think that results in things not going so well for the school. But this is not where a school has, made an effort to maximize the potential for their dollars early on. But you're talking more about during the course of construction that those dollars would be.
Well, currently we're in a very favorable bid environment, and right now our costs are coming in under government estimate. The delta would not result in an increase in scope to that particular site, but would return those funds, or actually keep the funds because they're really cost avoidance money. There is no extra money, back into the bond fund so that we can use those dollars in future years when we expect the inflation cost to increase and eat away at our capacity. So what we don't want to do is double the scope of a project, increase the scope of work we're going to do, and then hope and pray that we don't have an inflationary period in the future. I think this is just good, prudent fiscal management.
Well, I hate to call out a specific example, but you know that with Henry High School we managed to rearrange the monies, deciding not to do the cafeteria and to do the auditorium instead.
Overall, we did not increase the total value of the work.
Okay, that's what my point is, that we didn't increase the overall value, but that the community put in a lot of hard work and a lot of hard thought and made some very hard decisions, and I don't want that penalized at individual schools. We want them engaged and intelligent use of the money, but where we can save money on construction, sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. DeBeck.
I move option B, which is returning the money back to the project.
Which is the recommendation.
Yeah, which is the recommendation. Okay. So that was
the motions.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, and I strongly yes, it's been moved for discussion and seconded, and I disagree with it. I really think that one of the ways that we can really save money is holding people accountable. During Prop M, we had a lot of change orders. We do not expect to see a lot of change orders, and I think what happens is that when we bid things out, they come back, and we had this discussion before, you and I. My concern is that we should get our money's worth out of any contractor that we use, period. If we have to go back and rebid something or change orders, then we need to keep them within a certain scope. I understand it happened to Lincoln. All of our projects under MM were way over. People bid low, and then they did change orders. And what I think what would help us is that if they bid low, which we know they're coming in low now, but we need to have something that says we're not going to do change orders. Okay, we give you a package, you bid on it, you provide that for us. And if we're getting those bids in low, when you did the 15-year projection, and this is what I believe, when you did that projection, you took into account what was going to happen with inflation. You did that then. Okay, so I disagree with now. I think you're finding extra money for extra projects later on, and I disagree with that because if the schools work hard to trim in one area, they shoot the bennies in another area, and that's why I can't support this.
Dr. Evans?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're clear on this. I do support the motion because I believe that there still is at a school site, there still is some flexibility in terms of them looking at what the projected costs were on these 4 projects, let's say, and as the example that Ms. Nakamura said, when we want to kind of move something around within that budget to make it work. But that's still within the realm of government estimates of
absolutely
that's how we're operating. But that just so it's clear that school sites will be able to reevaluate and reconsider, as in the case of Patrick Henry, of changing priorities and what's the best way for them to get the most out of their money.
It's a participatory process. We participate together. We do the design task force project, a strategic master plan for the sites, and they have a tremendous voice in this. We're not in the business of dictating to the schools specific attributes of the project. We give them. This is generally where we're headed. We have months and months of work together before we come up with a plan. So yes, sir, absolutely.
Right. So then the point would be that if bids came in low, that would go back into the general Prop S fund,
right,
which would just kind of protect its stability.
Right now,
and
things
would also
are great.
prevent the schools who were fortunate enough to be at the beginning from having an advantage over the ones who were at the end.
We always have to remember number last. There's a school out in 2026 that needs to get done. And we always have to remember that that's the one we need to always think about, the last school, the ones that are at the tail end of the program. We have to shepherd our money so that once we get there, we have enough money to take care of all the schools.
But in response to what Ms. Jackson said, I mean, in terms of what she said was that you had already calculated in the inflationary aspect.
In a range of probability. We do a total indicated cost where we think the probable is going to be, we think the best case, in a perfect world, this is the best case. And we also do a worst case projection. And right now, with the inflationary period for the program going from 10 to 16 years, we're $70, $80 million in the hole before we started. So we really have to be very careful. Once the program goes from 10 to 16 years, that extra 6 years that we have because of the net assessed value problem we have in the district just mathematically eats up our bond money. So we have to be very careful.
You calculate the inflation and basically
absolutely.
came out $76 million short.
Right now, in the best case. Okay. Now, if we had a hyperinflation period, Ms. Jackson's absolutely right. In the projects came in over. The steel doubled in cost. The concrete costs went up tremendous. We had property values that went sky high, all in a very short period of time. In that project, we had a tremendous amount of increase in the capital value of the community, so you could borrow more money. We've got exactly the opposite problem now. We've got a deflationary period. We've got great prices. Our change order rates are on average less than 5%. We're well within industry standards or below. But I can't count on that happening forever. So it's just prudent fiscal management to save our money now to be sure we get to that last school in 16 years.
So actually, saving money you don't have.
Right, we're saving money we don't have.
Would it be safe to say that you plan on having less change orders under Proposition S than occurred under Proposition
Hopefully.
M?
The change orders in these things are difficult because a lot of the work we're doing, for example, are tenant improvements. We go into an existing site. We don't know what's behind that wall. They do a discovery period, for example. We've got a site right now where all of a sudden we have a water leak in the building. When we got into the site, we didn't expect that. So the builder goes in, we take a wall down, all of a sudden we've got an as-found condition. That sort of thing is always going to happen in construction projects when we go into a renovation situation. So you're going to have those kind of problems. Hard digging, for example. We've got structures in the soil around in the area where you find it's hard to dig. We put an allowance into those projects. So that is typical construction problems, and you're going to have some of that.
Ms. Jackson.
No, I guess I just wanted to certainly say that At the end, what I would like to propose to you is that I'm still going to vote no. But at the end, if we find that we do have extra money, I really don't want programs or projects coming back unless it is equitable across the district, because the way these projects are staggered is supposed to be equitable across the district. And what happens is I don't want to hear about we found some money to do a special project, okay? Because what happens is schools say, no offense on Patrick Henry, we're not going to do the cafeteria. And then all of a sudden 5 years from now, you say, we found money to do the cafeteria because the bids came in low someplace else. That's my concern, okay? And I don't want that happening. What I want to happen is that, fine, finish all the projects. If there's any money left, then the board decides where that money is going to go, okay?
We can only be decided if it's within the scope of Prop S, because you can't invent projects unless they were covered in Prop S in the first place.
I mean, I agree, but what I'm saying is that when people do changes and schools want to change things around, we cannot turn around and save money on everybody else's project to do somebody else's project. That's my point.
We serve at the pleasure of the board. When these projects comes up, we bring them before the board for consideration.
Okay. With no further discussion, please vote.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Okay, Superintendent's consent agenda. We've got a speaker on I-36, Tom Lemon.
I move approval.
Second.
I want to pull an item. Or items.
You're right.
I move all the ones that are pulled.
All the ones that are pulled?
Oh, we've got two speakers, yeah. Okay.
That aren't pulled.
Hi, my name's Tom Lemon, business manager of San Diego Building Trades. I negotiated with your staff on the PSA, and I want to talk about the Hoover bid. Specifically, I want to make it clear that the initial bid was an anomaly and that the project should be rebid under the PSA. As you know, subsequent bids for other PSA projects have came in as much as 40% below engineers' estimates. Now, that being said, when the board negotiated with us, they made sure in Section 2.3 that if it goes over 10%, that you would have an option to bid again without the PSA or bid again with the PSA. Now, I want to just touch on, was it really the PSA that caused the overbid? I don't really know that answer, but I'm going to give you three possible scenarios. Maybe it's one of the three. As I understand it, the bid documents had issues. The contractors were presented with several unknown things, including environmental concerns, which you just heard Stu talk about, unreasonable staffing requirements, and I'm being told that there were a lot of upgraded fixtures, both in the electrical and the HVAC, that were well outside of the norm. Clearly, you know there were some outside pressures from contractors groups, specifically the AGC. As you recall, they sued the district and lost. You had one of their contractors file unfair labor practices against the building trades. Again, those charges were thrown out as unjustified. During the initial outreach programs where you guys went out to the community, tried to get contractors involved, the AGC and the ABC both showed up. They intimidated the other contractors. They provided incorrect information or information that was not factual. And if that wasn't enough, then they went on to post letters on their websites urging you to beware of the PSA. And I think that might have had an effect. But then some of the contractors just chose not to bid because you guys really put the bar up high. You made requirements in the PSA that required local hire, health care, families, career opportunities, and a chance for workers to have a voice in the workplace. Your vision was the clear pathway out of poverty, but you need to stay the course. You need to rebid under the PSA to get those goals that you set out in front of you. It's time to tell the contractor groups that you're in it for the long haul and what's best for the students and their families in our community. Thank you.
Mike Magdalenas.
My name is Mike Magallanes. I'm representing the Carpenters Union, and I also was at the negotiating table with the school board. And one of the items in this bidding process, it was going to be a green building. And anybody that's done any construction knows a green building, the cost is going to go way up in a green building. The bids were higher than the engineer's estimate. The next 2 bids that came out, that green building was not included. They didn't have to do a green building. And those projects came average of 15% below the estimate. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Mr. Lemon's right about the AGC. I went to a seminar over there to see what they were saying. At the same time, the school board was having their seminars about the PSA. And they were telling their contractors, don't even get involved with this. They just want to see this project fail, the PSA fail, and it's not going to fail. It's going to be successful. So there's fewer general contractors that bid on the first one, but the contractors that I talked to that did bid on that first one said there were just as many subs as a regular school bid with no PSA. So the subs are still bidding. There are a lot of subs still bidding. So I would encourage you to vote no on this and rebid it under the PSA. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Do any board members wish to pull any items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'm going to pull item I-36.
Okay, and any others? Okay. Nope. And we have a motion, Mr. DeBeck.
On all the others.
On all the others in a second?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we vote for Mr. DeBeck's motion? Okay, and item I-36, Ms. Jackson?
I'll speak to it and then I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I do know some contractors that were told by the AGC that because this was PSA, they should not they should not vote on it. And I want to say very clearly, this board member's perspective, the AGC does not speak for the school district. The board speaks for the school district. We put a PSA in position because we believe in our families within the city of San Diego that voted for Prop S. So this is coming from the board, and my motion is this: that we reject all bids for the construction of the new woodshop green building at Hoover High School project, and that we rebid the new woodshop green building at Hoover High School project with the PSA requirements.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think that we ought to go ahead and rebid it. Without the PSA, we've given it a chance, and I think it's a chance also, though, to see what would happen if we didn't bid it with the PSA. I think the comparison's important. It's within our agreement, and I think it's a chance to go ahead and really find out what works and what doesn't work. But it's pretty clear which way this is going to go. So,
Dr. Evans?
Yeah, the reason that I'm supporting rebidding under the PSA is that I certainly support what we're trying to accomplish through the PSA. However, we also made it very clear. We were very cost conscious and very careful, saying that if it was not financially viable to do it under the PSA, that we had an escape clause. And we still have that escape clause. And I myself will say I will still exercise the option to use that escape clause. However, it's a little ambiguous right at this point as far as what caused the bidding, whether it was the PSA or not. I mean, it's just difficult to determine. We know that this was the first one. We know that a couple of bids that came after that under the PSA came out low bids. So I think to be prudent, we need to say, okay, let's check again, see if it will come in under a reasonable bid under the PSA, and then after that, if not, then we exercise our option of the escape clause.
Okay, please vote. Okay, that passes 3-2. Okay, we have no more requests for public testimony. That is. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if Eugene Marble III or Kathleen Gallagher are here, please come and speak. If not, we will recess and reconvene upstairs. All right.
I know.
I know.
It's like 6
It's still daylight. It's still daylight, y'all.